And welcome to the No Assembly Required podcast, a podcast where we talk about nothing at all in the world. And now your host. She is the queen of making pillow forts, and she thought I didn't know that. Red Romina. And now your second host, a girl who I'm sure has not seen more than 3 episodes of The Wonder Years, Audrey Ember.
I've seen more than 3.
And I stand corrected. And now your final host, a man who's late to his own podcast because he enjoys naps, Roberto Blake. Welcome to the No Assembly Required podcast, filmed in front of a live YouTube audience.
Nice.
That was classic.
No,
Yeah, no, I still
watched
got it.
like 6 or 7 episodes now.
So we got you hooked.
Well, I watched them all in one day, and I haven't watched any since.
Wow. Well, that's pretty good, though. I mean, I'd say
Yeah.
that's like binging,
Success.
right?
Yeah,
Somewhat.
So what are your feelings on the show?
it's pretty good. I don't know.
Wow.
It's been like a week since I watched it, so it's not like...
It still holds up, though, since it was like made in the 80s, and yet it was about the 50s.
Yeah. I was talking to it with my mom because she watched it like when she was young. So that's kind of fun.
So it's something now that kind of like you guys can connect over.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, it was... Yeah.
Yep. Speaking of things that Audrey hasn't seen, needs to see, etc. So we've talked about this previously, but I've taken the initiative and I have created a spreadsheet, which
What?
I'm actually gonna link
Oh
in
my
the chat
God.
right now.
Yes.
So if anybody who is listening wants to replay this and go onto YouTube and replay this so that you can see the link.
Oh my God, there's so many of them.
Okay, but listen, before you get overwhelmed here, all right? I created a spreadsheet of films that Audrey is required to watch. So these are not just like my favorite films. I was very
Deliberate.
right. So, and I also
What's the
employed
title
help.
of the document.
I also employed the help of a couple of my friends who are also filmmakers and fellow cinema lovers. So
This is awesome.
there's a lot of contributions that went into this. So this spreadsheet is filled with classics, specifically ones that have either shaped entertainment today and or have infiltrated pop culture and are referenced in a lot of different things, either just because of comedy or because of the culture that it's created. So there is it is a very extensive list, but I try to not have sequels as much as possible. So you'll see, like, for example, you'll see The Godfather. All 3
seen that one.
Godfathers. All right. Well, so you can tick it off. There's a little checkbox. You can tick it off if you want. And for those of you who are looking at the spreadsheet, if you want to bookmark this, you can keep track of Audrey's
Oh God.
and keep her accountable. But so so you'll see that like The Godfather just says The Godfather. It doesn't say like all 3 of them, even though you should realistically watch all 3 of them because they are really all great. But I tried to just keep it to the very first ones of any like franchise or sequels or trilogies or whatever, because I figured you just want to get your feet wet. You just want to get, see the thing, get cultured, and whether you like it or not, then you decide if you want to watch, the rest of it, right? So you don't have to watch the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. But if you want to.
That's a whole weekend.
Right.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's
The
like
Hobbit
12
trilogy, if you throw the Hobbit trilogy, it's a whole week.
hours. Right.
God.
So What do you think of this list at first glance, Audrey?
There's a lot of them.
Okay, I tried to keep it under.
This is like
100.
a year's worth of film to get through.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. If she watches one a month, if she watches one every single day, she can be done before
Sure.
3 months. She can be
Sure,
done.
every single day. Yeah, that's a lot of time in front of Netflix and not a lot of time making content.
I'll try and like 2 or 3 a week. I think could be possible.
Yeah.
All right, you got 6 months.
Oh my god.
I mean, there's no
Thanks for
time.
doing.
There's no time stamp on this. This is like
Oh, I'm so glad Monty Python is on here.
There's 2 King Kongs.
okay. This one was very, very difficult because
Which Godzilla?
the original.
Swear to God.
Yeah, that's why I
For
put the
real.
year too. So I put the year on there because a lot of these have either been remade or like have knockoffs, whatever. So I wanted to be very clear that you were watching the right one. So I put the release.
Okay.
Yes, thank God that Batman and Batman Returns are both on here, because yes. Yes. Like, it'd be a travesty if Batman and Batman Returns were not. I'm not even joking. I realize how committed I am to this, but yes. You must watch both of those films. Like, that is absolutely required.
So the reason that I put both King Kongs is because you have the original one from the 30s. But I also feel like the one from 2005 is probably it's like one of the best movies made.
As far as an update
post-
or a remake or a...
Well, I mean like post 2000. It's just a really great movie overall. Like the script is really great. Everything is just really solid entertainment. And I feel like if you're gonna watch King Kong, you can watch both of them and kind of compare like where cinema has gone from the original one.
I have a complaint. Rush Hour is not on here. I have a complaint that Rush Hour is not on here. I have a complaint that Friday is not on here.
Listen, Roberto, I sent you this list earlier.
I
And
approve of everything that's on this list. I
all
don't
you
approve.
said was mwahaha.
Yes, I approve of what is on this list. I have complaints about what is not on this list. Pretty
Well, that's
Woman
why
isn't
I
on.
sent it to you.
Pretty Woman isn't on this list.
All right, yes, Pretty Woman should be on the list.
Yeah.
Okay,
like-
well, why don't you
Getting
text
longer.
it to me, Roberto? You could have contributed to this list.
Called out.
By the way, if anybody watching this live right now has some suggestions and would like to input, send them to my Twitter because I'm not going to be able to write everything down.
Top Gun is not on this list. How dare you?
Oh man. All
You're
right,
not
I
going to
guess-
tell
I mean,
me
should
that
we
in
do-
pop culture like
No, I mean, here's the thing. Obviously, like, there's a whole bunch of them, you know? And that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be on the list. I also didn't want to overwhelm her by
That's
giving
fair.
her, like, 200 titles to watch. Now, I will say, I'm not sure if there's any Tom Cruise on there. I don't remember right now. But there definitely should be. So, I will rectify that. There should at least be 2 Tom Cruise films in there.
Seriously. you're
So yeah, that one that should be on here. Thank You for Smoking should be on here.
Maybe. Just because it's a good film doesn't mean that it should be on the
There's-
list.
So some films should be on here for their use of pop culture in terms of like you seeing how it plays out and the influence of these other things leading up to it. So
I feel like that's another list, though, don't you?
that could be potentially true. I feel The Matrix should be on here.
Oh shoot, I forgot to put Idiocracy.
Oh my lord, that's required
Okay,
viewing.
all
This is
right.
gonna be like 2,000.
No. I'm going to.
We'll
set
cap
a
it at
limit.
100. We'll cap it at
It's
100.
only it's gonna be at 100, so it won't ever pass that number. That's for sure. Because it'll be overwhelming. It'll be too much.
Yeah.
So you should
but-
get your feet wet and start doing some stuff with that. I feel like
Well,
that's a good start.
I can like update you guys every week on which ones I've watched, and then we can talk about them. That'd be fun.
Oh, I'm down with that.
But Romina,
man.
like
someone added Pulp
Romina,
Fiction.
like the lack of inclusion of Pretty Woman, Top Gun, and Friday is like unforgivable.
Well, how about you text me back?
Something other than maniacal laughter. Yes. I take full responsibility for.
I mean, if you notice, I didn't put any Wes Anderson movies on there, and Wes Anderson is my favorite.
Wait a minute. You know what's not on here?
Wait.
That should.
I need to watch
you
Wes
don't
Anderson
have
movies.
Wes Craven on here.
Have
either.
you seen any M. Night Shyamalan? Audrey?
No, for me, I don't.
Unbreakable
I'm
should have been on
asking
here.
you.
Unbreakable should have been on here.
I don't know.
There's too many.
Unbreakable
things.
should have been on here.
Absolutely, The Sixth Sense. I mean, that one.
And Nightmare, the original Nightmare on Elm Street should have been on here.
What are some like?
Didn't I
What
put
are
it on
the-
there? Which one did I put on there?
You have Nightmare Before Christmas, but not Nightmare on Elm Street.
What? Yeah,
Thank God though
yeah,
that
I
you
did.
put Princess. No,
Yeah, I do. It's not in alphabetical order here.
Oh.
It's sorted.
Oh, you did put it toward the bottom. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, an American Tale should have been on here. And The Land Before Time. Yes.
You haven't seen Land Before Time? Did we discuss this last time? Oh my goodness. Okay.
She has not seen The Land Before Time. See, this sweet summer child has not seen The Land Before Time or American Tail. She knows not of Fievel. She knows not of Fievel, not of Littlefoot. She knows nothing of these things. She's been deprived of a proper. She's been deprived of a proper education in childhood, and we must rectify this travesty.
I put Land Before Time, Pulp Fiction, American Tail, some Tom Cruise ones. What else was it that we was missing? Some other...
Pretty Woman.
M. Night Shyamalan. That's what.
Yep.
Pretty Woman.
That's another like 7 right there.
Yeah.
Oh my god. No,
All right.
Romina, I'm making a video on Wes Anderson soon, so I need to watch more of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Which
know
ones
exactly.
have you seen?
I saw only one that
Which
I know.
one? Grand Budapest.
Yes.
She should also see the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
What?
Oh no! You know what she should see is Interview. Hold on.
Yes.
Oh, Idiocracy. That was the one.
Idiocracy. Also, The Truman Show.
Oh yeah.
And The Mask.
Yes. I knew I was missing some very crucial. Oh wait, what about Dumb and Dumber? Have you seen that? I'll take that as a no.
I'll allow it.
All right, guys. Ooh, A Christmas Story.
Fast
Did we
Times
add
at
A Christmas Story?
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Did I not add that one? All right. Fast Times.
Yeah, you don't have it.
All right. Brooke suggested A Christmas Story. Should we add that one?
Yes.
Right.
That is definitely a pop culture staple.
I feel like I might have seen that one. I don't know. I'll feel like
She has to watch the original Karate Kid.
Anthony says, "Good luck with the list, Audrey."
Yeah, she has to watch the original Karate Kid.
All right, original
Wait.
Karate Kid.
Because you've seen Cobra Kai. You need to see the original Karate Kid. You have seen Cobra Kai, right, Audrey?
Wow.
It's
Wait,
on
when
YouTube.
did the original
and-
Karate Kid come out?
1985.
Okay, I have not seen that.
Huh?
She has not seen it.
But you have to.
on
It is a
video.
pop culture. It's a pop culture staple, and now they've revived the story with Cobra Kai. Which, by the way, you could watch Cobra Kai without theoretically watching the original Karate Kid trilogy, but you have a greater appreciation for how over all these years they've actually not even retconned the continuity of this established beloved franchise, but actually bookended the story and created a generational story, and how they honored the original actors, the original everything. Like Cobra Kai is a lesson in how you properly honor a classic, film in the modern era?
All right, so Brooke just suggested Heathers as well, and I can't believe I forgot that because Heathers is one of my favorite.
Oh, also, um,
Audrey's just sitting there
also,
blinking, just watching her life fall into
I think
the
I'm
abyss.
pronouncing. I think I'm remembering the title of this and everything like that. Michelle and Romy's high school reunion.
Oh, Romy and Michelle's high school
Romy and Michelle's high school reunion. I do think is
is one that needs to be watched.
yeah. You have the Breakfast Club in here too, right?
I've seen that one.
Oh yeah, it's in
I
here.
do
Yeah,
have that
Breakfast
one.
Club is in
Yeah,
here.
she's got to go in there. She's got to go in there and start making little checks on it. Oh, you know what?
Mighty
Clueless.
Ducks. Clueless and Mighty Ducks.
All right.
Clueless and Mighty Ducks.
Yep.
Quack, 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 quack.
Yes, Audrey,
Like-
is there a film that you've seen that you would?
I don't
like
know.
Okay.
I'll have to like recognize.
Now I really want to watch the Mighty Ducks.
All right, Mighty Ducks. I've added it.
God, it's such a great underdog story.
All right, so now that we've officially ruined Audrey's life,
Are you kidding?
No.
We've enhanced it. We've given her a much better life than the one she had.
not yet. She has to watch the
It's gonna
film.
take me like a year.
She'll thank us later.
Oh my god.
I mean, there's clearly. So here's the thing. So we can definitely make like a list of just Disney films. I feel like, you know.
Oh dear God.
So like I tried to kind of avoid
we'll
that
just-
whole thing because like I would be like, oh, Rescuers
What's this?
Down Under.
Oh my
like,
God. We start with the Rescuers Down Under. Yes.
Right, exactly. There's like too many. So
Oh dear God.
I don't want to jump into
Like
that yet.
we
'cause I feel
literally,
like
when this channel is monetized, if this channel's ever monetized, we sit there and we raise the funds for a Disney Plus membership for Audrey.
Oh my god.
oh, she's like, oh
We
man.
have a little bit to start with, so we have time.
When COVID's over, it's like
Oh,
we're-
you know what?
movie
Have you
nights.
seen-
We're instituting movie nights.
Audrey, have you seen Joker?
Yes.
The new one?
The new
Okay.
one?
Yes, of course, the new one.
Okay, yeah, I've seen
It's not on the
So
list.
many references.
I'm not adding it on the list. But
Oh,
you have to
oh.
see Taxi Driver.
I've seen
that
Taxi
or
You
she
see Taxi Driver?
okay. Well,
All right,
no.
so
Has
good.
she? But has
So
she seen?
cold.
But has she seen? Has she seen The King of Comedy though?
I don't know. See, like the half the thing is I might
See,
have.
because-
I just don't recognize it.
Because De Niro was in The King of Comedy, and then he was also, as you know, in Joker. And the thing is, his role is very different in The King of Comedy versus the role he plays in Joker. So you actually have to watch The King of Comedy.
Mm.
The King of Comedy is like, I mean, as much as everyone says, "Oh, Joker is lifted from Taxi Driver," it's like no, it's like combines Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy.
Brooke is just she's like tweeting me stuff. She is on it. She knows her stuff. This
Right
is
on.
our target audience right here. So all right, I think that we've done enough of that. 20 minutes of
Yes.
taunting Audrey with this
Anyone who's
everlasting
listening to this and has zero interest, it's like what?
So Audrey actually wanted to talk about something because today's episode we're talking about the fact that we have a crappy tutorial on life, but Audrey has actually enrolled in masterclass.
Ooh.
And I wanted to talk to you, Romina, about it because I just
I am
finished
also
one.
in masterclass.
I'm
Roberto,
tempted.
you're the only one who's not on masterclass, right?
Yeah, I'm tempted. I mean, I've done so many online course things,
Courses
and
and
there's
stuff.
there's things that memberships I already have that I need to use more often.
Yeah, I mean that totally makes sense. So masterclass, I'm enrolled in a number of different courses. But I've done the cooking class with Wolfgang Puck.
Nice.
That's what I'm actually really interested in.
It's really good. It's great because it's not just like watching a cooking show. He also kind of goes into like actually at the end, which I haven't done that lesson yet, but he talks about cooking like from a business standpoint, which I think will be interesting. But he also talks about cooking, like why cook and why care about cooking, and not just like oh, it's just like a thing that you can or cannot do.
I've really come to enjoy cooking. Today, before my unintended nap, I had actually just finished eating. So I made raviolis with a chicken,
Ooh.
chicken sausage raviolis, and it was really good. It was really good with like diced tomatoes, which I did myself. I chopped the scallions. I did like everything. Like I did it all. I did it all, and it
Good
was
for
like it was
you.
so good. It was so good, and the seasoning and it's like it was legit. I couldn't like put
Yeah.
down my plate. Like I just and that's where the itis came in. I was just like, God, like just like
Takes nap
just like
immediately
I'm like,
after.
all right, I'm out.
Yeah. I made pasta too.
That's a good
That's
sign.
funny.
Yeah, no. So it was like, oh
It was
my,
really good. It was really good pasta.
yeah.
But his class is really great because he actually seems like very passionate about it,
Hmm.
which is like kind of the thing about like this sort of thing is like when you get people of like that caliber, it's like, well,
Yes.
they're just doing it because, you know, they got a job, like they got a gig to do, right? Um, but I will say that probably the best master class that I've enrolled in so far has been Ron Howard's class.
Yes, that's what I watched. It's so good.
Is his on filmmaking or?
Yeah. So it's really, really good because you can tell that he was actually interested in being
Yeah.
there. Um,
He seems like such a chill, like
yeah, he's so
cool
just like
dude.
relaxed. And like he'll just show up with like a little notepad with like all
Yeah.
the notes and stuff that he wanted to talk about for the lesson.
Mm.
And
The-
it's very, very different from like Martin Scorsese's class where it just looks like it's an interview. Like Martin just like showed up and they just like asked him questions, you know,
No,
like
it's
it
like,
seemed
no, you
very
showed up and you're the
different.
Martin.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I
Ron
really
like
liked
really
the-
breaks it down, I feel like.
Yeah, there's like this whole section where it's the, you know what I mean, the rehearsal part where they
Uh-huh.
show like how he prepares or whatever for shoot and all the different angles, and I'm
Mm.
like, that's really cool because you're kind of just following them around the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
and like,
It's like being a true
don't know.
apprentice.
yeah, it was really cool.
My
I liked those the
apprentice.
I also enrolled in Aaron Sorkin's screenwriting class,
Ooh.
and that one's really, really
Aaron
good.
Sorkin is one of my favorite writers overall and everything like that. Just in the unfortunate event that he ever does a hatchet job on you or a character assassination on you, it will be like god awful, but it will be written well. But sometimes I do feel like there's a point where it's like, and it's not always a bad thing, but somebody clearly their point of view influences their work, and when it's a biographical thing on somebody else, I can see the fingerprints of like, this is where you took some liberty with this narrative that you've crafted about it. Like that, I have mixed feelings about that. I mean, it's well executed, but I will say that I love Aaron Sorkin's work. But like, for example, with stuff and the influence over like the Social Network. The Social Network is fiction presented as a biopic from my point of view. I don't think it's actually like, there's so much of it that is really just, there's like creative license taken, and it's obvious in many ways. I mean, it's just because when you actually delve into the things that were on the record and the interviews given prior to the movie being made of like Mark Zuckerberg, and you get some background history on him. I mean, the fact that like Mark Zuckerberg was actually in a relationship with his current wife throughout the founding of Facebook, and
Right,
like she
yeah.
wasn't representing. So like, okay, he has been with his now wife, who has an immigrant background. Their daughter is half Chinese. Like, he speaks fluent Chinese now. Like, it's like, okay, and where was the woman behind the man represented in this entire story about the building of this empire? Like, you basically erased her completely. So
Yeah, there's definitely
that's-
a lot of stuff that I will say, like, well, The Social Network is not really one of my favorite movies.
now the book
And I
Accidental.
saw it once, and
I think it was
Not
lifted
for me.
from, like, it was basically written as a treatment of the book. I think, is it Accidental Millionaires or Accidental Billionaires? It's something like that, which really in and of itself was a hit piece that is the fantasy of one from the point of view of one Eduardo Saverin, who is not exactly an unbiased
Right.
source in this. And okay, so where's the background from like all the other like founders and the people who were part of the original masthead, and where's like okay, where's like the hardcore background on the Winklevoss twins, like where's like this was like
Yeah.
it was like it was really it made somebody much more sympathetic than they should have been portrayed. Ironically though, like Eduardo Saverin in that film is portrayed as like, I'm like, if you feel like you got raw dealed, I'm not sure you'd want a book or a movie written where you kind of look like a simp. Like, I'm not sure that that's the direction to go in. Like, I mean, you get what I'm saying? It's like, how, like, I don't really sympathize with Eduardo's character in that film at all. And I feel like it's very thinly veiled of like, you clearly, like, nobody is this naive. Come on.
Especially if you're working in the startup scene.
And if you are that naive and that happens to you, it's kind of like
then you shouldn't be working in the startup scene.
it's like feeling bad for like some spoiled like brat that like walks into the casino and gets taken. It's like,
Audrey, have you seen The Social Network? Do you know what we're talking about?
I know what you're talking about because it's been recommended to me before, and I almost watched it the other day, so I know it's not like Facebook.
So here's the one of the things that's interesting about that is actually The Social Network. So I don't know if you know this, Audrey, but technically, one page on a script equals a minute in film.
Yeah.
So more or less, that's like, so most scripts that you find will be somewhere around like the 90 something page mark, or maybe like 100 something pages. The Social Network was like 400 pages.
And The Social Network's almost all dialogue.
So, and the reason that it's like that is because the way that it was directed was very fast paced. So there's so much dialogue in it, and it was directed so that everything would happen very quickly, so that those like 400 some pages are just translated into a 2-hour something film, as opposed to however many hours that would be. So, yeah, I mean, it's little things like that. I mean, I don't think that was actually discussed in the master class, but there was a lot of stuff that, like the way that he just broke down storytelling was very fascinating, and I actually watched National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation while I was taking this
The
class.
Griswolds.
And which is on the list, by the way, Audrey, so you'll know what we're talking about. This movie, I'm telling you, The Christmas Vacation, after, like, I did this class, this Aaron Sorkin class.
Princess Bride was not on this list. Wow.
It's been added. So the Christmas Vacation is a perfect movie. Like, just the storytelling was so perfect. Because, and I'm not going to do any spoilers or anything,
Griswolds.
because the main character had a very clear objective and was presented with obstacle after obstacle, so that when he finally achieves his objective, you get to have a sense of gratification. But the storytelling aspect of it is so simple. So on first glance, when you see it, you're just like, this is just a stupid like National Lampoon movie. But when you actually break down the story arc and break every single act down, you realize that the movie is so perfectly crafted that the storytelling aspect of it is engaging and it's entertaining because of its simplicity.
I don't think that if you really sit there and you watch it, that there's a minute wasted.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And like,
which I cannot say about most modern cinema.
No, I mean, you have to, this is definitely one to watch multiple times. And you definitely don't have to watch it during Christmas. So if you want to get through that list faster, there's a couple Christmas movies there, but you can watch them now. Christmas in July.
Oh,
Yay.
that by itself, the Christmas in July, or even Claymation Christmas, the Rudolph, like the red is like that theoretically should be there. But
okay,
probably again to your point, we could do one just on animation.
Yeah, I mean, like me too. Like I also didn't put like all Studio Ghibli movies, even though like in my heart I would just be like, oh yeah, just
but
like.
But you did put Mononoke on here, which
I did put it on there because I feel like it's just really great cinema and just deserves to be on there.
The next time, I'm committed to this. The next time that Mononoke is on the big screen, we will see it, Romina, because I definitely owe you that.
And yeah, you should watch Die Hard. Die Hard is on the list.
But you'll
as well.
you'll also have to give me a pass if I cry during Mononoke, because I'm not sure I've ever not cried at some point whenever I've sat through Princess Mononoke. Because Miyazaki is a god.
Audrey's just like, okay.
Yeah. Miyazaki is a god.
But Audrey, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your experience with Masterclass and what other classes are you enrolled in?
I
plan on enrolling.
I'm watching the Jodie Foster one right now too.
Okay.
But I really liked the Ron Howard one because it was like hands-on, you know.
Yeah.
I like observing and learning at the same time. I feel like it's better than just listening to someone talk.
Add Basic Instinct to this list.
Oh. So the another class that I actually enrolled in and just started like this past month is the I forgot what it's called, but it's a chess class with Gary Kasparov. So it's actually really great because it's not just like he really touches on a lot of different things, and it's enlightening just listening to him talk. Like this man is just so eloquent and he has so many fascinating things to say that it's not just I feel like it's not just about chess, you know.
Does Morgan Freeman have a master class?
Oh man!
So I could just listen to his voice. Like if Morgan Freeman starts a podcast, he'll surpass Joe Rogan as the greatest podcaster in the world. I'm not even joking.
So then we just need to get Morgan Freeman.
Like I'll just tweet at Morgan Freeman. It's like Morgan, start a podcast, start a YouTube channel, and you will rule the world.
Just need a podcast.
Well, he can film it, and it can be audio. It can. Yeah.
True.
But I would stop everything to watch the Morgan Freeman podcast every day. Joe Rogan, who? Like,
you know, the only podcast that I am subscribed to is Tim Ferriss's podcast.
Are you not subscribed to NARP?
Yeah, what?
Are you not subscribed to NARP?
What?
How dare you? What? You're not subscribed to my podcast?
Wow.
Anyway, so to change the topic here.
Oh, good dodge. Good dodge.
So Brooke says Morgan Freeman is reading quarantine bedtime stories, but actually,
oh my god, I have to.
You know who did bedtime stories? Who was it? Jeff Bridges. Did you ever see? Did you ever see that? So Squarespace did like a whole
I heard
campaign.
About this. I forgot.
And it was just like Jeff Bridges, like he was just recording stuff, and it's just like him talking about like dream. Like it's so weird. It's like dreaming with him. It's like lucid dreaming.
My retirement plan is to write fantasy novels. That's my retirement plan. What? And I will probably, because I'll still have had an internet career and personality, I'll probably then come to the internet and I'll probably just read my published short stories with gravitas and with doing character voices and doing emphasis on the parts that matter, and really it's like getting into the characters and what will befall them, and like I'll literally basically, and the thing is, the short stories I'll probably make them to where they're like PG-13 ish, to where like you could basically like the grandfather reading The Princess Bride to his grandson. Basically, that's my retirement plan in my 50s. Like,
what's your retirement plan?
when they send me off to the old YouTube folks home.
Audrey's like, I'm just getting started.
The YouTube old folks.
Yeah, when they send me off, when they cart me off to the YouTube retirement home for irrelevant content creators, this will be how I pass my days.
I just imagine like
Wow.
an old folk home with like Logan Paul and all these people like in there.
What's up, Logan? What's up, Logan?
Oh no.
Honestly, kind of sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a hell on earth.
What? Like, Cloud
Romina,
Gang,
what's your retirement?
Cloud Gang for life.
What's my retirement plan?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a llama farm,
Wow.
and I'm going to breed llamas for therapy. So they're going to be therapy.
Be the
animals,
llama king.
and I will be the llama king.
You know, it's funny, when I'm retired, I'm
Or the
sure that
reality
they will
TV show.
they'll come to the old the old irrelevant YouTuber retirement home for me, and they'll be like, you know what? It's like, Roberto, like, I know you're retired, but it's like the world needs you, and you've been drafted. You've been appointed as the emperor once again.
Aren't you a little bit too old to be an emperor at that point?
No.
Emperors are
No.
Oh yeah, that's right. We have senior citizens.
With
leading
this, I love democracy. I love the republic.
You have
I
to be
promise
70
you,
in
with
order
this
to-
power that you've laid upon me, once this crisis has abated, I will lay my power down.
Well, even in Star Trek, the president of the world is pretty old, I would say.
The president of the world.
Oh yeah, so Audrey, let me educate you.
In the world of Star
Oh,
Trek, we
no.
have the United Earth Federation.
In Star Trek,
It is
We have-
glorious.
the United Earth Federation, which is
Sounds kind of like they couldn't come up with anything better.
That's actually a really good
I feel
United. Think about
no.
it.
it's very
United.
clear.
It's like, so a federation is a very specific model, and it is Earth, and it is united. It's like, it says
It's
what it
clear.
is.
It is
It's
what it
very-
is.
It is what it is. It's
No.
clear instead of clever.
Yeah, I don't want clever. I just want to know what it is, you know?
Okay.
But basically, we have a unified global economy, and everybody is governed by the same body. So it's all one.
Yeah.
So the
One unified, codified set of rules
yeah,
applied
And
to
so-
all equally and fairly.
there is a president of the world.
Dang. That's a pretty cool title, president of the world.
President of the world, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, now that you've gotten your little dose of Star Trek for the night.
But, like, the Republic shall be reorganized into the first galactic empire, a secure community for the majority.
So
Emperor Palpatine's speech for Revenge of the Sith is still like one of the best, and so is his speech when he takes power in the Phantom Menace. I still believe that like, as an orator, Emperor Palpatine is portrayed by the wonderful actor Ian McDermott, who you could never ever say anything horrible about, or I will strike you down with all of my hate. And like, no, I love his voice, and I love doing my imitation of him because I believe his cadence, his theatrics, and his employment of just the right amount of camp is superb. It's like, Ian McDermott should teach a master class in acting and theatrics, and voice, because
I feel like we have enough actors on Masterclass. I want some more interesting stuff.
that's fair.
You know,
Fair.
like they have chess. Like that's unique. You know.
Yes. No. I.
Wait, like what?
I don't know.
Maybe there should be like there could be like maybe there like I mean
It's got to be
somebody who
something
does a
different. I feel like.
meditation.
Yeah.
Like any number of things.
something,
Anything that's not, oh, I want to be in the entertainment industry, or oh, I want to be an academic. I think
right. Something that's not necessarily creative.
something more life oriented, possibly something
right,
practical.
like an everyday thing.
Like I mean, I think even just somebody in like optimization and organization, as far as like, you know, space, like someone even on feng shui and the value of that.
Yeah, like Marie Kondo.
Correct. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, something like that would be interesting. They do have a like I saw an interior designer. I saw that and I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, I like that.
But yeah, something like that. Oh, like a writer, novelist would be interesting. There's not
container gardening.
Container gardening.
Container gardening, because of how many people don't necessarily have yards, but they want to have plants, or they want to start growing organic food, and you can teach
How
them
about
woodwork.
Like woodwork. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, although I don't think the majority of people have access to those tools or to the kind of space that is allowed for
but
that. But for the people who do, I think, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Woodworking YouTube is a very powerful niche community, by the way.
Yeah,
like,
it
there's,
is. It's
like
huge.
blacksmithing YouTube, I mean, that's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's a good segue, talking about these like life skills and life experiences. I think it's a good segue into kind of our main thesis topic.
About having a crappy tutorial on
Life offers us,
What do we
in
do?
most cases, a crappy tutorial. And here's what I mean by that. It's like, think about who in life are your greatest influences and examples, especially even in early life. And
Your
in many cases, these are our parents and things, but it's like, but for most people, not everybody, but for most people, your first life influencers, your first instructors, your first masters, if you will, in a master apprentice relationship where you are the student, you are the Padawan learner. Like, you're not exactly learning from all powerful Jedi masters. You're learning from people who in many cases in life have settled and wouldn't say that they've mastered the game of life or that they won at a high level. And they weren't given instruction by anyone who was a master of the universe either. Like, and there's nothing wrong with the idea of like just passing on what you know and doing your best and all of those things, but you have to realize that to some extent the perpetuation of a cycle of maybe anything from generational poverty to generational mistakes to generational careers has not put the majority of people in the best position in the world. Why is it 80% of Americans have less than $10,000 in savings? Why is it 60% don't have $1,000? Why, if you polled people, why are most people dissatisfied?
When was the last time
in
you
life?
saw those numbers, Roberto? I'm just curious.
I look those numbers up more or less every single month, but like I think it's worse now theoretically if we didn't like. But
yeah, I mean, yeah, we've got the
for reasons, but
more or less. So this year,
70% of people die in debt. By the way, regardless of income or education, 70% of people die in debt.
So
I looked that up this year.
60% of Americans have
less than $1,000 in savings.
And this is a stat that you would say is updated to this year, or at least last year.
At least last year, according to MSNBC Money, and according to like multiple articles. Like it's, if anything, I'm actually downplaying the number. The quote that most people use is the quote most people use is that they say over 50% of Americans don't have $500 for an emergency is the quote that most people use.
Whoa.
Which, by the way,
$500.
Which, by the way, is the deductible on your car insurance.
Which, by the way, is like groceries.
I like to use the number 60% don't have $1,000 in savings for this reason. If for whatever reason you got into like a bar fight or an altercation or anything that would see you.
Why is a bar fight the first?
Hear me out. Well, most Americans might need to like, you know, blow off some steam or knock back a cold one, or it's a relatable. Well,
that's gonna happen when we. All right. Anyway.
In a post, whatever world, but like, or for whatever reason. Here's my thing though. if you don't have $1,000 in savings, 60% of Americans who don't have $1,000 in savings, if they ever find themselves in any kind of situation where they happen to be arrested, do not have the means for bail. They don't have the means for bail, which means the perpetuated cycle of that is, should you ever, for whatever reason, end up in a situation where you don't have that, you then are just going to sit in jail, which means you're probably also going to lose your job, which means that your ability to do anything is now compromised. And it's just a downward spiral from there, which means you are literally one bad mistake away. 60% of Americans are one bad mistake away from their entire life, all their future, all their potential being flushed down the toilet, just like that, if they just happen to have one bad day. If they have one bad day, which is the Joker's thesis. The Joker's thesis is you're all one bad day away from being me. You're all one bad day away from being me and being pushed over the edge and too far. And that's his thesis in the story The Killing Joke, right? And financially, it's true for 60% of Americans that they're one bad day away. Like if you don't have $10,000, $10,000 sounds like a lot of money until you realize that, oh, look at the deductibles on your health insurance. Like you're one bad thing for you, your kid, your spouse, whatever, wipes out everything you've saved and worked for up until this point, if not puts you in debt. And debt's a downward spiral that keeps eating at you and eating at you. So it's like, and that's why 70% of people, regardless of income or education, die in debt. Even people who earn a good salary, Romina and Audrey, people who earn a good salary, there's people who never escape their student loan debts.
You know, I believe it. I believe it because, like, even through like my own personal financial struggles, I have still managed to be above that average that you just mentioned. So I won't say what it is, but I've reached it because I set that as a goal for myself a couple of years ago. And so it takes a lot of time because of the amount of income that I make, but I can now say I have X amount saved up.
Right.
And it is because I set that aside and I struggled. And instead of buying a game or instead of, buying this mocha frappuccino, I decided to put those $4 into the savings account. And because I've decided to invest in an actual savings account, which is a high yield savings account.
Yes.
And not, my just normal bank savings account, which by the way, I checked 2 days ago, and the interest on that is 0.01%.
Yeah, compared to getting 1.67.
Right, exactly. So that kind of thing is just like, these are the little things that like makes a world of a difference. You know?
And yet nobody's taught it for the most part. No one's taught most of these things in life. And the thing is, the people who would be responsible to teach you in many cases were not themselves taught these things, and the people before them and the people before them in video games. And all of you, like Audrey, you've played video games, and Romina, you've definitely played video games. In video games, like, it is actually legitimately possible, regardless of what game we're talking about, to play the game at a high level with no prior experience and not even being a video game person. And you know why? Video games don't have a crappy tutorial for the most part. They don't have a shitty tutorial. They have a very, very specific tutorial that explains to you, here is the world that you find yourself in. And in some video games, the first level is a very low-cost barrier to entry tutorial that teaches you the mechanics of the game. Here are your capabilities. Here are your skills. Here are things that enhance your abilities. Here are things that you can do. Here are things you cannot do. Here is an objective for you to reach. Here is an ideal level of power that represents mastery or advancement in this world. Here are the obstacles you are meant to overcome. Here are the things that are harmful to you. Here are the things that are helpful to you. This is presented in a clear, non-ambiguous way. Game design is effing amazing.
Yeah,
and
that's pretty much what the
in life you're not
mobile game is like.
Yes,
it's actually very annoying. I'm like, let me just play the game.
But in our real world, you're taught a lot of things, and all credit to people and all the things that teach you to be a functional human being. But you are not taught how to be a winner. You are not taught how to be a master and champion of this game. You are not taught how to play this game at the highest level. You are not taught what things help and hurt you the most and the reality of those. You're often given very subjective version of those that is not factual or accurate, primary example, everybody here might have been told, avoid credit cards instead of being told avoid debt. There's a very specific difference and nuance to that.
Yeah.
Some people most people's tutorial is this: get good grades in school, work hard, go to a good college, graduate, get a useful degree, go into a good salary field for your chosen degree, work hard and try to stay at a company as long as possible, collect a pension, work your way up the ladder, and then at age 65, you get to retire and collect Social Security and your pension from your job, and then you can spend the next 15, 20 years of whatever is left of your life doing whatever you want after you've sacrificed all of your best years of earning potential, all of your strength and youth of your golden, your prime, and all of those things. And after that, you can have these last 20 years, these last 15 years, maybe these last 30 years, while your health is in decline and your energy and stamina is in decline, as the scraps of what is left of your life to do with as you will, as long as you do all these other things up front and contribute to our society and pay all these taxes. And oh yes, by the way, you also have to get married, have that house, dig into all this debt that you may not ever outwork your way out of or live, and do all of this because that contributes to our economy and to consumerism. You now currently literally have government officials telling you to risk your life and die to preserve the economy, and no one here, we all believe, but it's like this is a shit tutorial. This is the crappiest, you're telling me how to fucking lose. Because I'm sorry, there's what sounds appealing about anything I just said, and that's the default future that they have mapped out for you. That's the default future that they have mapped out for you.
I wish that map still worked, because it doesn't.
It didn't work then.
Even work is like a kind of like subjective at that point, right? It's like
it wasn't so effective back then as to put anyone in a position to hand down generational wealth to their children.
Right, absolutely.
In many moons, if it ever did. Right.
But what I'm saying is, in terms of it working, as far as this is the plan and it will actually play through that way. But it doesn't now, because of the fact that no company will have you for more than 10 years, if you're lucky.
Yeah. Regardless of your contribution, unless, of course, you've gotten into the network.
Right.
Not even based on your contribution, based on your relationship.
Yeah. Now,
that's the cheat code.
Audrey, I am curious about, your own financial stuff, because I know, we go off about that kind of thing all the time. But, how do you feel about all of that? Coming into the world now as an adult and having your own bills and things that you need to take care of and stuff like that. What's your perspective on all that?
Yeah, I didn't even know. Well, this is kind of going back to what you were saying earlier. I didn't even know freelancing existed until college. How crazy! I didn't know it was an actual thing that people did to make a living until I went to college, because all people were saying is go to school, get a normal job, da da da. When I realized that, I was like, oh my god, what? When my friends were telling me they were starting their own freelance video businesses, I was like, what? That's how bubbled I was in high school. But
did you know that there were people when you were in high school that were making hundreds of dollars a week flipping on eBay?
I know. I definitely did not know that.
There were people, I remember even back in my day as a kid, I didn't realize, but here's the thing, even I had a crappy tutorial, because if I had ever realized, for either of you, that my hobbies made more money than when I worked at the mall, I would have stopped working at the mall, and I literally would have just went all in on my hobbies and mowing lawns and shit, because the problem is, though, they put so much social value on this idea that you're part of the workforce and you're part of the economy and you're part of the, I should have just kept mowing lawns and raking leaves and helping people move furniture and kept all of my money and put out less hours to make the same amount in a day. Because when you're a kid, and this is back in the 2000s, when you're a kid back in the 2000s, you work at the mall, you're making $6 an hour if you're lucky. And that means even if you work most of the day, you're going to make about $40. less than that after taxes, because they're going to take out those taxes. You should have just mowed a lawn for 2 hours and got $50 and not have to report it to the IRS. Like, you should have just pocketed that money. You should have just went and taken that $50 and then go to your local card shop, if you're me, and pull Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon cards and pull packs and then flip the highest playable card out of there back to the shop and make the same money back plus $20 in profit by the time you go through enough packs, and you would have just like had a continuous revenue stream off of that, and so on and so forth. Back then, before even YouTube and all these things, there was ways to like make money. And then you could go, and again, if you literally just rake leaves, it takes you 2 or 3 hours and you make $30. You literally are getting paid $10 an hour because or more because of efficiency, because they're paying for the result of my lawn is done, not how many hours you work. Like, so you end up at a higher dollar per hour output, because what no one told you is this: no one needs a job. Everyone needs to produce income, and income is not done in exchange for work. It's done in exchange for value or results. Work is the process by which results are created. So it's possible to create an income without having to do work. It's called, and most people who do that, it's not that they're doing passive income by means of a system as much as I created the business, so I have all the legal liability and risk. I provide an employee with the resources to do work, and I created the customer relationship for the employee to deliver something to someone. And because I produced those things and they're doing the actual labor, then the money and income comes in. And because I took all the legal risk and liability, I got to decide the price, and I kept the top line revenue, and I paid the employee for time, wages that they agreed upon, which is why when you get a job, you are selling your labor usually for 1/10 of the price of the value that you created. All one has to do is create value in some way. And the thing is, if you're the employer or the business owner, you create the business to create value, and you create the system through the employees and the resources to create value for customers. The employee is doing that work. You profited without doing the work. You did the upfront work of building the business, and the labor is being done by other people. You're still profiting because you created an income producing system or asset. And so therefore, what's your job as a CEO? Because by the way, or screw being a CEO, you could just be the owner. You could turn the business over to a general manager, and you could just collect the money. You could franchise the business like McDonald's or somebody, and then start having these national chains, and you're licensing the name and you're licensing the workbook, the systems, the protocols, and that's how people become corporations. And then you're the owner and founder of a corporation. You don't have to do work ever again in your life to make income.
Wait, so how would you change the tutorial, Roberto, to make it better?
I would start with simple systems and definitions. Because first of all, you know what's one of the best tutorials in the world? The Mega Man X franchise is one of the best video game tutorials in the world, because in the first of the video game, you're taught the benefits of jumping and dashing and combo moves. You're taught what a weak or strong enemy looks like. You're taught, I can beat this enemy. I can only beat this enemy if I charge my attack. You're taught some very basic things in the first 3 minutes of being introduced to the world. You're taught some very basic mechanics. And by the end of the first level, you fight a boss that you cannot beat, and because it's supposed to demonstrate to you what your limitations currently are and what you should aspire to, because then you're introduced to another character named Zero, and Zero comes and completely obliterates the boss that you couldn't fight with all of your heart, with everything you've learned. Your best wasn't good enough. Zero comes and shows you what power looks like, and then encourages you and inspires you to reach this level of power one day. And by the time you complete the game, you have surpassed the power that Zero demonstrated to you in level 1 by the time that you beat the game. And it's because of all the learning experiences and all the resources you acquired and all the skills you learned with each progressive level. With each battle, you get stronger, you're more knowledgeable about the world, you have had experiences that have grown you. And the thing is, I don't think we have enough of that progressive linear development in life in a meaningful way. And I think there's some fundamental principles. And I think that one of the first things someone can do is if they feel they got a crappy tutorial in life. And by that, I mean your school didn't prepare you and you know it now. Your parents didn't prepare you because the world and the systems that they used changed dramatically. You find somebody for who you represents our other hero character, Zero, in this case. Like, you find someone who represents the type of power that you want to wield in the world. You find someone for who you represents the penultimate of success or happiness or a desirable outcome. And then you decide that you want to acquire as much of their knowledge and skill as possible. And the thing is, like, you could become their apprentice. You could even just decide to work for them, and you can read
I
up
choose
on their life
Captain
story.
Janeway.
You can actually model yourself after fictional characters.
Explain.
So the thing is, in Campbell's The Hero's Journey, like in his thesis of the hero's journey, he actually talks about what it represents the growth and progression of a hero and a character, and it usually is about personal growth and development for them to be able to accomplish and achieve their goals. At the start, they are not someone who is capable of really anything, and they're not someone who's capable of anything extraordinary. But through challenges and trials and tribulations and triumphs, they become somebody who is a champion and is far removed from the person they were when they started. And that's actually a really inspiring thing, and we often do model ourselves after, in some cases, fictional or historical characters. And by learning lessons from their journey, it's like, no, we don't have the ability to operate in the fictional world that they did, but there are things that we can derive and learn about them from life if only we take in the lesson. One of the lessons in Harry Potter is the importance of having good, strong friends who have your best interest at heart and who understand you and whom you can rely on. If Harry, Hermione, and Ron, if either of them failed in what they brought to the table, then the Dark Lord rises and wins. Like, there's value in understanding that. There's value in the fact that of looking at Harry and the fact that he even learned from people he didn't always like. In every successive year, there was somebody that he had an antagonistic relationship with that still provided some value to him. He learned from Draco Malfoy. He learned from Severus Snape. He learned from Sirius Black. He learned from people with whom he had an animosity with, and people he even learned from the Dark Lord Voldemort himself. Like, he always has learned and gained something from everybody who he experienced in life. Even Neville Longbottom. And even in a fictional story, you can adapt a quality or personality trait that is desirable or advantageous or has been proven to be of some value. And you can learn from that. If you watch the Back to the Future trilogy, one of the things you learn from Marty McFly is to the downside of being a hothead, and his character progression and arc is he's someone who changes his fate by learning the lesson of not being easily baited or manipulated or not letting his emotions rule over him. And it changes his fate completely. And it also teaches self-determination and that destiny isn't written. The story arc of the first two Terminator movies takes Sarah Connor, somebody who believes she's nothing special, and through extraordinary trauma and circumstances becomes somebody who is the embodiment of fierceness, of determination, of perseverance, of doing whatever it takes. And so there's a lot to learn and to glean from finding something to aspire to. And our first role models and our first heroes are often our parents, which is wonderful and it's great. But the thing is, if we're very lucky, we learn very early about the mortality, failings, and flaws of our parents, and we realize that they are not necessarily the embodiment of our ideals, or that they shouldn't be, and that maybe their life is not our life. And then that also puts us into conflict, and contention with our parents, because that seems like a judgment of so the life that I had that allowed you to eat and be sheltered and clothed isn't good enough for you. That sounds like an admonishment. That sounds like a judgment. That sounds like saying they weren't good enough. But the thing is, it should be the desire of everybody that their children should want more than what they have and should want to surpass them. And I think it is also the responsibility, in my opinion, not of being a parent, but of being a child, of knowing how my parents related to me, my parents took it as a personal thing that me and my siblings, but me in particular as the firstborn, would not have to suffer the consequences of their mistakes and failures and not have to duplicate that cycle. And they specifically instilled lessons in me and principles in me to actually offset the weaknesses they didn't like about themselves. My mom didn't feel she was good at math, and she made sure that we were, and at least specifically me, even though I kind of hated my math teachers, I am good at math, and I do love numbers, and I love my analytics, and so mission accomplished, right? I'm somebody who's that. You know, my parents grew up very modestly, very humbly, in many cases, very underprivileged. And as a result, they instilled in me a healthy respect for the value of money. And as a child, I was very into money. Scrooge McDuck, like, was my mentor. Like, and I mean that realistically in the sense of, no, Scrooge
Audrey,
was
do you know who Scrooge McDuck
Scrooge
is?
McDuck's a great role model, believe it or not.
Yes.
Okay.
In 2020, people wouldn't think Scrooge McDuck is a great role model, but let's analyze the life of Scrooge McDuck. A fictional anthropomorphic duck is actually one of the best role models you can have in life to learn the game of life, if we especially apply the game of life to being like Monopoly. Scrooge McDuck came from nothing. He was poor in Ireland. But he kept the first dime he ever made, and it was a promise to him about his potential and that he would become somebody of success and somebody of value. And so he always came by his money honestly. He was poor and he saw people cheated and swindled, and he always decided that he would always come by his money honestly. He would be shrewd, he'd be ruthless, he'd be a hardline negotiator, but he would not be unreasonable, he would not be unfair, and he would not lie to make money. In fact, in an episode called Duck to the Future, which is a play on Back to the Future, he goes to a future in a world where he disappeared because he went to the future, and finds out that his nephews inherited his business as he always intended, but they inherited his business and none of his philosophy, and that they were swindling people and abusive to their employees and did not honor his example. And when he goes back to the day that he left, and he finds that they're at their lemonade stand, not only swindling their customers, but that they instilled in their employees something called a privilege of working for us tax. Like, he was like, making money making money by exploiting others is no bargain. I thought I taught you better than that. You know, and he made them refund the money to their cheated customers, made them treat their friend Doofus, who was an employee, better. And again, he told them that it's like, you adopted all of my, avarice for money. You adopted all of my desire for the trappings of wealth and none of my philosophy. He didn't use those words, but it's like, I thought I taught you better than that. It's like, you looked up to me, you admired me, you took over my business, you have my name, and yet you took nothing away from the example of which I've lived my life, which he's always been a fair and honest person. Shrewd,
and that's when you get
harsh,
kicked out of the Starfleet Academy.
You're talking about Kobayashi Maru?
Pretty much. I do want to go back to what you said, though. So I have a Trello board where I keep all of my life lessons. So it's a Trello board that's just for life lessons, and each column is the year. And so as I learn stuff throughout the year, I'll add stuff in there. So one of the things that I have in here is actually, and I'm just going to read it, is parents don't want you to have the life they had. They want you to have a better life. And if you can show them that you are doing that, they will be happy, even if it means sacrificing having you close. So that was just like something that I had learned, and
that's powerful.
It kind of came in hand with what you were talking about earlier, where we have like this idolizing ideal of like what our parents are and the people that they are, and learning that they that they too did not receive a good tutorial on life,
Yeah.
kind of gives you like a one up.
It does if you can accept that, and if you have the distance of not romanticizing like your parents as these perfect godlike figures, and accept that they are just people. Like when I always appreciated that my parents didn't really, they made sure I had a childhood, but they didn't treat me like a child by patronizing me. They treated me like a little person that they were protecting and responsible for. They treated me like precious cargo, but they acknowledged I was an actual person and an individual with my own identity and my own ideas and my own feelings. And they always respected that in their own way. I think it was harder for my father to reconcile this than my mother. But, you know, talk to me like I'm a person and like I'm capable of understanding and learning, and that also I have my own ideas and you have to present me with a better idea. My parents explained to me why I was doing things or why I should do what they ask. They weren't just insistent of me doing it because they are an authority. And this is actually a very good tutorial and lesson, because it meant I was going to now hold every adult to the standard of my parents, and my parents always were accountable to me because they were acting in the service of my best interest. I was not there to listen to an authority and to obey and serve at the pleasure of anybody in authority above me. Someone in authority or wants to have authority above me is accountable to explain to me how what they're telling me is valuable and of benefit and in my best interest, and to also earn my trust by doing so. And I shouldn't follow them if they don't. That was a standard that my parents instilled in me that protected me from ever becoming a victim of authority. And also, again, challenging why. Asking why is important, because if you do something and if it's because I said so, because I'm an authority over you, you're conditioning people to be a follower and never a leader in their own life and in anything else. And the thing is, a lot of people don't do that with their children because it makes managing them much more difficult. But as they get older and they come into themselves and their power, and when they realize something like, oh, they do have the ability to lie, they do have the ability to manipulate you, it ensures that they don't use that or abuse it beyond testing themselves. And it means that they will listen to you when there aren't consequences. If you create a situation where you're always just the authority and you're not a trusted ally and not a trusted advisor, then the thing is, subverting and flaunting your authority becomes appealing, because, that's a way to be rebellious versus, no, I'm not, I'm going to trust that this person has never tried to intentionally mislead me or steer me wrong. This person's only acted for my benefit. Listening to them even though they're not here and I'm giving a counter point of view from a friend or another adult and everything. No, I should listen to this person who has always been accountable to me and has always given me a reason behind what they do. And so that trust is important and it is a protective barrier. And that's something that I realized that my parents did for me that probably was not done for most people. They weren't ever explained why for everything, and they were not taught to question and to challenge. And I think my father, being military and being in the chain of command, it's important that he always explained things to me, because I think he himself, with having somewhat of a rebellious nature despite conforming in the military, realized that sometimes your leaders aren't right. Sometimes what you're asked to do isn't reasonable. Sometimes we are told to do things that aren't in your best interest, and you should be in a position to, if you're not, in a chain of command situation, you should be able to hold people to account and to question their motives. And you can't always trust people in authority. I think literally being in the military really drove that home from too. Sometimes people in authority aren't always right. Sometimes they're not always honest. Many times they're not always fair. And so between both my parents, it became very important for me to always understand why someone was telling me what they were telling me. That's a valuable lesson. That's a really good tutorial. But it's not to say they gave me a perfect tutorial. Here's some things that are super helpful. One of the things we are not taught early on in life is the importance of, which we learn in every video game, keep your health bar high. Just keep your health bar high. Do not
Isn't
do
that
things.
the name of your chapter?
that's one chapter of it. Like, yeah, it's one chapter of this thing that I'm writing, but it's like, because I'm writing a better tutorial. Like, but keeping your health bar high is super important, because if your health bar is low, like, it's pretty much game over once it goes too low. Once it goes too low, it's also very hard to recover any of it. And if you do, it won't be what it was. Keep your health bar as high as possible for as long as possible. Do things that are in the best interest of keeping that health bar high. Just this guiding principle in life means that kids don't do drugs because you're going to compromise your health bar. Kids, don't abuse substances. Don't abuse your body. Don't put yourself in situations that cause risk or harm to your body. Don't be around people that take risk and do harmful things to their body, because they're not if they don't respect their own body, they're not going to respect yours. Like, keep your health bar high. Really simple lesson in principle, and it excludes you from horrible experiences and risky behavior and people, and it's probably in your best interest, right? Simple lesson. Keep your health bar as high as possible. Once you deplete health, you're dead. You're over. You're dead. And once you compromise your health bar will never be as high as it used to be.
True.
Like, that's a really simple lesson. Here's one that we're really not taught thoroughly enough. Don't waste resources. Don't waste resources, and more importantly, like, don't waste resources you have, but also, if you want to progress and meet greater challenges and greater levels, get more resources. Make that a priority. In life, like, how many frivolous things do we entertain ourselves with and buy? And like, people who talk about their money problems, a lot of times, not all the time and not everybody, but you'll find that you have people who talk about their money problems, but when they get to tax return, what do? They go out and buy a pair of Jordans. They go out and buy a purse. They go and they buy a bigger TV. They buy something that is not in itself a resource that is going to enable them to meet the challenges they've had in life easier. It's like, if you're struggling in life and the levels, the boss fights, these things are wearing on you. They're constantly depleting your health, depleting your resources. It's a challenge that's hard to overcome. Why not invest the money you've worked so hard for in better resources, better tools, better equipment, better weapons to deploy against the challenges of life? In a video game, you're taught to do exactly that. You guys have played video games where you can't overcome a level if you don't get a certain weapon or tool, right? How many obstacles in life have you, if you look back on them, it's like, wow, that would have been significantly harder, or not impossible, if I didn't have this one resource or this one tool?
A lot, probably.
Like, all right, Audrey, real life example and everything like that. Like, is there anything even in the last couple of years that, wow, if you didn't have a certain tool, there was no way to really complete a challenge or a requirement or an obstacle or something?
I mean, definitely. I think I'm just kind of blanking.
On
like, the first thing my mind jumped to was like, I don't know. Honestly,
there was a client thing you had to do, and I lent you that microphone setup.
Yes. That's what I was thinking at first. I was like, if I didn't get this camera, I couldn't do this. Like,
so it was a job that you had to do
stuff to get the camera.
Yeah, it's a job you had to do because it was how you were going to make money. It was how you were going to make an income. Yeah. It was a gig you had to do, but you needed the right tool, or the gig would not be done to satisfaction, and it would have been a waste of time.
Yep.
And you wouldn't have got what you needed. It would have been a mission failure. So, so like, we don't get the things we need in life. We know that we have missions. We know that we have things to do, and yet we don't necessarily always make having the tools and resources, the right gear, the equipment, a priority in terms of, all right, because in a video game, you only have so much gil if it's Final Fantasy. You have so much Pokebucks if it's Pokemon. You only have so much to work with, and if you don't, if it's not enough, you're just going to struggle throughout the game if you don't have that thing, or you can't even move to the next level if you don't have that thing. So you have to make it work. Well, in real life, you only have so much resources and money in given situations, and what do we spend it on? There's this great book called Your Money or Your Life, and it asks you to do an audit of how much money you've earned up until now, collectively in your entire lifetime. What have you spent your whole life working for, and what's the maximum dollar amount that's come to? Then it does the painful thing of asking you, right, and what is it that you have in exchange for, like, you've worked for this much, How much of it did you keep? What do you what do you have? And then think about how much time you've traded for money. And then it asks you to look at all the things that you've surrounded yourself with. And now, instead of just their dollar amount, convert that dollar amount to the time it took you to earn the money for it. And then you realize that you have spent days, weeks, months, hours, sometimes years of your life in exchange for stuff. And then what does that stuff do to actually better your life in any meaningful way? Primary example. Let's assume someone was working for $15 an hour. Let's assume someone was working for $15 an hour. So, how much is? Because I don't know, and I don't expect that you guys would know just because you're women. But you might know because of friends of yours. How much does like a designer handbag go for these days?
I'm probably the worst person.
Huh?
Depends on the designer.
Just look it up.
How much does what's the thing kids care about? Louis Vuitton or something? How much is like a Louis Vuitton or like
the first one I looked up is $1,000.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
All right, so if someone buys $1,000 handbag, now if someone's making $15 an hour, $1,000 handbag represents 66 hours of life. If you're a normal person but you decide you want $1,000 handbag, you trade 66 hours of your life for that. Does that sound like a reasonable exchange for something that's not utilitarian at all to your life?
Yes. No. I'm kidding.
66 hours. 66 hours. So 66 hours. 66 hours is literally you worked at a job probably for 2 weeks, or a week and a half if you're 40-hour week, in exchange for a purse.
I mean, maybe your passion is purses.
Now, what other things, in terms of things that better our lives, what are some things that don't cost $1,000 that better someone's life in terms of
going for a walk?
What are I'm talking about a resource or a thing that you could do that actually makes you maybe healthier, stronger, or the challenges. What are common challenges people say in life that are so hard for them that theoretically
weight loss?
Well, weight loss. Okay, so for less than it doesn't cost $1,000 to buy an exercise bike. It costs $120 to buy an exercise bike. It costs about $140 to buy a punching bag and work out your aggression. Therapy is about roughly $55 a week. There are these infinite number of things that 66 hours of your life could get you in terms of resources at the same equivalent, $15 an hour, trading your life for, that would make your life better. $1,000 worth of healthy food. $1,000 represents 2 months of groceries for if you're eating healthy. If you're eating very healthy, it could be 2-3 months of groceries, $1,000. Depending on your needs or the size of your family or your allergies or whatever it is, vegan, this, that, the next or the other. So there is that. $1,000 definitely gets you all the cookware and glassware you need to start cooking your own meals. $1,000 is a washer and dryer combo of a high amount of quality. $1,000 of a low level of quality, but you would own them, would probably give you most of your, would probably be able to, you could buy a stove and a refrigerator if you needed to, or to replace those. That 66 hours is that $1,000 in savings that separates you from 60% of Americans on the margins. So people would rather trade 66 hours of their life for things. In this case, if you, the thing that I do know about that people do, a pair of retro Jordans is $350. Divided by 15 is 23 hours of life. So about 20 hours. So that's half of shift at work. So it's so giving up half of your week, or giving up the equivalent of 3 days, 3 days of your 3 working days, three days of 8-hour shifts, 3 days of your life for something you're going to put on your feet to impress other people that is not any more significant or better than a $50 pair of sneakers that are comfortable, that help your posture or don't wear on your ankles or anything like that.
Or if
Pair of
you
Asics.
do want to go a little bit more luxurious and want to spend an extra $50, you can get some K-Swiss kicks.
Yeah. So you could get Asics,
Sponsored.
K-Swiss, Reeboks for a
Hashtag
fraction.
not sponsored yet.
So for a fraction of that, like, so, okay, you can give up 3 days of your life to have these retro Jordans, or you can give up 3 hours of your life and have a equally more comfortable pair of shoes that are healthy for your posture and all of that and be just fine, or keep the shoes you have if they're not, worn down and like $0. So like, there's that. $1,000 to Brooks' point is shelter for some people. Like there's 66 hours in exchange for shelter is an essential thing. So like people, if you literally audit people who often a lot of times complain or talk about money or how like there's things in their house that were non-essential that don't really contribute value or productivity or security, stability, or their fight in or help their fight in life or their fight for a better life in any way. They're things that make them feel better that they have, which is an emotional thing, which I understand, but like it's not helping you in your goal or your mission. And another thing that people have is they do all these damn side quests. They don't have an actual journey that they're on. They don't have a goal, like a goal for their life. They don't have a mission for their life. They don't have a level of power that they're trying to achieve. If you pick up the Pokemon games, your goals are to conquer all 8 gyms in whatever region you're in, and to challenge the Elite Four and the Pokemon League, and then to challenge the champion of the Pokemon League and become the champion. Your goal is to complete the Pokedex and to travel the map and to explore the world and to learn about the world and to capture all the Pokemon in your region if you're playing the game Pokemon. There's a clear objective here.
My objective is just to catch them all.
Yeah, catch them all. So you want to be a Pokemon master. Yeah. You want a completed Pokedex. You want to be a Pokemon master. See, yeah, but that's a goal.
Pretty much, yeah. Exactly. The goal is just to compile, to collect them all, and that's it, But if that's your objective, then that's your objective.
But here's the good news. If you have a clear objective, everything you do is in service of your objective, which means you don't waste resources that put you in a position to not achieve your objective.
All right. Well, my objective is to wrap up this episode.
Dang, that segue.
Oh, that was clever. That was
good.
That was good. But I think one important thing that I do have to throw into this tutorial is
You've got 60 seconds.
Okay, so we'll give me a little bit more, but I'll wrap it up. It's like
no, I gave you half an hour.
Avoid side quest. Join a strong guild or party, because respect your limitations. Join a strong guild or party.
We talked about this on the last episode. We don't want to do repeats.
I'm just going through some quick ones. It's like, don't be around like. Don't be around people who aren't. Don't be about that like low level scrub life. Be about some people that are about this power leveling and everything like that. Like
come on, I did such a great segue. You're really gonna throw me under the bus like that? Come on, it was so good.
Exploit glitches where they exist.
Such a clean cut. All right, we're gonna
don't forget the basics and
you
reach for
spoil this. All
reach
right,
for level 100.
If you guys.
There.
If you guys want to dive deep into this, you got to wait for a bit, because Roberto is going to publish this into a book
at some point.
And we don't want to spoil it all, You give people some free stuff, but let's not give them everything, Roberto. We want them to buy the book.
Oh, we're not going to do the Gary Vee model of just give everything away.
No, well, we're going to make them believe you just gave everything away, but there's actually some other top secret stuff that's going to be in the book once it comes out. But for now, we're going to wrap this up, because speaking of hours and life.
Yes.
I want hour and a half. All right. Roberto's going to do us a solid, and he's going to do an amazing outro for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think I've got our outro.
Uh-oh. Right.
Yeah.
Ready.
Thank you for listening to the No Assembly Required podcast, a podcast where we talk about nothing for an hour and change. Thank you for listening to your host, Red Romina, the president of the United Earth Federation. Thank you for listening to your host, Audrey Ember, who has 100 plus movies to watch in a year. Game on. And of course, your host, Roberto Blake, who has hopefully given you a somewhat less crappy tutorial to navigate your way through life and reach level 100 and beyond. This has been the No Assembly Required podcast. Please rate and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, and anywhere podcast can be listened to. Please subscribe to us here on the YouTube channel and help us reach our goal of getting 1,000 subscribers and monetizing this podcast channel. The No Assembly Required podcast was filmed in front of a live YouTube audience. No audience members were harmed in the filming of this podcast, only our host.